From the WLNS newsroom, this is In Michigan. I'm Brad LaPlante. It is Tuesday, December 9th. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the news, but it seems to me that every town wants a data center, or every town needs a data center, or every town has somebody that wants a data center put in. There are proposals popping up all over Michigan, including a Selene OpenAI project, a proposal from a UK company in Lansing, and a proposal that has since collapsed in Kalkaska County. You may have heard about the Kalkaska project after a video went viral last month showing a packed room where residents were upset about the prospect of a data center at all. The project in Kalkaska County stands out to me because, unlike the Selene project, a developer wanted to build a data center, but he asked first. And that's unusual because that doesn't really happen. In Selene, some have called the project a rush job, including Attorney General Dana Nessel. The project in Kalkaska wasn't rushed. A developer asked the residents, they said no, and he left them alone. So our guest today is Sheri McWhirter, and she's going to break down all of this for us. She's a climate reporter at MLive. Ahead on today's show, the good guy data center.
To start, the project idea has pretty much collapsed. The infrastructure in Kalkaska County is pretty much ideal for a potential data center development. There are existing natural gas pipelines, and so it was a multi-pronged concept that was really kind of based on the foundation of Kalkaska County being ideal for carbon sequestration based on geology. What that is the scientific concept of capturing smokestack emissions from a power plant, the carbon dioxide emissions that come from burning fossil fuels like natural gas. And if you can capture those emissions and condense them into a liquid, you can take that liquid and inject it underground. The notion is that it's offsetting the greenhouse gas emissions that would otherwise be going into the atmosphere and accelerating the climate crisis. So the concept is, well, if we want to build a data center and we want to have a natural power plant co-located with it, what could we do to offset the greenhouse gas emissions? And the idea was, well, we could pursue carbon capture and sequestration in the geologic formations. There are a number of scientists at Western Michigan University who are researching Michigan's capacity for carbon sequestration as a potential, burgeoning industry as power companies look for ways to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions.
Right. And when people were, approached with this idea, I know that, I mean, from what I've seen, not just in Kalkaska County, but everywhere that these data centers are being proposed, I'm seeing, full participation from the people who live in these areas. Like, you're seeing crowded rooms, you are seeing viral videos of people clapping back in confrontation with the people who are proposing these data centers and these projects. And from what you gathered in your reporting from Kalkaska, what do the residents think about having this data center project in their area?
What was really unique about this conceptual proposal in Kalkaska County for a data center was that there's no big business behind it already. There was no big tech company that's already invested in this idea. It was a guy who works in the oil and gas industry with a conceptual idea about carbon sequestration, who kind of pitched this idea to the community rather than a company coming in saying, here's our plan, this is what we want to do. So it was a little bit of a reverse to the process of what we've seen in other communities where big companies are coming in with their proposals and then facing pushback. This was someone coming up with an idea and asking the community what they thought up front, and then deciding not to pursue the project. So that was unique. Um, and then in terms of the pushback, they got it. I attended the first public meeting that was hosted to gauge public sentiment. And it was standing room only to a degree that I'm sure the fire marshal would have been really upset with what was going on in the room. There were a lot of people there, way over capacity. And what I also observed was that many of the people who were pushing back were from across the political spectrum. You were seeing people there who were environmental advocates, and you were seeing people who were, conservation minded people who are more conservative. Um, they came together at that meeting to object to the concept of a data center coming into their community and using their resources. Specifically in the Kalkaska case, the idea was to use public trust land. So land that's owned by all of Michiganders, state-owned land, and that was the thing that that seemed to coalesce the most objection in Kalkaska County. It's the notion of using public land for such a project.
Right, right. And did this builder or potential developer, did he have any ties to Kalkaska or Michigan rather?
Oh, sure. Yes, of course. Uh, the the man who had proposed it, his name's Matt Rice. He has what's he has a company called Rock Locker. He went to Western Michigan University, studied geology. He's got a PhD. So his concept for carbon sequestration isn't completely radical. I mean, he's it's based in science. He studied that very technology here at a uh, Michigan Institution for Higher Education, and so I believe he lives in Traverse City, which is pretty close to Kalkaska. But yeah, he works in the oil and gas industry up here. So
And I mean, carbon capture is interesting too, because I mean, just contrasting this story with the data center that everybody's probably heard of in Saline, Michigan, which is the one that's being built by Oracle and Related Digital, for OpenAI. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer has heralded that project as a big win for the economy, and things of that nature. Contrasting this data center in Saline, you right see it's there's a lot more profit incentive for OpenAI to build this data center because they're building their AI infrastructure, which they think will be the future of technology, and obviously it's a lot more profit driven at the expense of pretty much everything else. From what people are kind of arguing is that that's bad for the environment. It's and we don't know if it's going to be good for society as a whole. But on the other hand, this proposal in Kalkaska, which as you said, was has collapsed, is kind of interesting because it's kind of about making the or fixing the environment, in some ways, right? Where you would offset the and carbon capture is an emerging technology for a lot of people as one potential solution to the climate crisis. And so I guess I'm wondering where you think that kind of dichotomy lies, in the sense of like, people don't want these big centers in their backyard, but like, where are we going to put them if this can really help and truly help solve environmental issues?
I think that a lot can be said for the importance of allowing a community to decide what developments are happening in in a community. Um, that was the part that I found most interesting about the Kalkaska case, was that the idea was brought to the community before it was taken to a big tech company. Um, and the notion of trying to offset the environmental harms that come from building these big data centers, it's not new. There have been efforts to try and design data centers in ways that would minimize impacts to the environment. For example, data centers use copious amounts of energy and water, both. And so, in the case in Kalkaska, the notion was, well, build a natural gas power plant and do carbon sequestration to minimize the impact on the climate. There's no promises that it's going to work perfectly. And then when it comes to the water usage of a data center, that uh, has been addressed by some proposals to use what they call a closed loop uh, cooling system. These centers still would need to draw some water into them, even if they do use a closed loop uh, water cooling system. So there are ways to try and reduce the harm that data centers can have on the environment, but it doesn't eliminate the impact that they will have on the environment. So that's something that communities should also very closely consider.
I know we talked about the difference between the data centers that are kind of a lot of people know about. OpenAI wants to build a bunch of them. I'm sure that other companies want to build a bunch of them. How is this one different from, if is it different from, I mean, it has to be, right? Like the in the sense of like it's not kind of that same, I guess kind of just explain like how it's what makes it so different from so many of the other data centers that are being proposed.
I think the thing that makes it most different than the other data center proposals across Michigan, and I checked with researchers at both University of Michigan and Michigan State University to confirm this. It's the first time that anybody can recall a community being asked first whether or not they wanted to have a data center and under what conditions they would accept one. In all these other communities around Michigan, companies are coming in with their proposal and saying, this is what we want, this is what we are going to do, these are the permissions we need from you. Whereas in the Kalkaska case, it was somebody saying, I've got an idea. Let me talk to the community first, see what the community says. And if they say yes, but only under these conditions, then we can try to go court a technology company. So that was the thing that I found most unique about the Kalkaska proposal, was the community was asked first, rather than a tech company being courted by a potential developer.
Right, because in the Celine case, a lot of people are upset because they feel that, and talk a little bit too about what the potential downsides to having a data center in your community. I imagine it includes rising electricity costs and maybe some other things. What does that entail when a data center comes into your area? What are the potential downsides to that?
Some of the harms that we've seen in other communities and other parts of the country include depletion of groundwater resources to use to cool the servers inside data centers. We've seen electricity prices increase for ratepayers to help pay for infrastructure needed to build data centers. So there are impacts on everyday people from data centers being built in their communities. They do come with an influx of economic impact when they're being built. There will be construction jobs, those kinds of things. There will be taxes that will be paid to local government entities. So there is an influx of money, but there are environmental harms. So rapid increase in electricity demand in a community can impact the rates that people pay, and gobbling up all the groundwater can impact a community too.
That was Sheri McWhirter for MLive. Her article can be found in our show notes and on MLive.com. Tomorrow, we'll focus on education and learning after COVID-19. I'll see you then.